Hey, Rebecca.
Good afternoon.
How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Did you have a nice 4th of July?
I can barely hear you. What?
I said, did you have a nice 4th of July?
Yeah, I did.
Good. So did we. It was great. We were with family and had a blast.
Yeah, well, let's see, what did we do? Uh, well, we went to a movie.
Good. Good. So we had a bunch of people around us and we went to the beach and they did fireworks and it was just super.
Okay. Well, yeah, she went away.
Did you
There
enjoy
she
the
is.
movie? Did you enjoy the movie?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I talked about it a bit. It was that the movie was called Summer of Soul.
Okay.
It was really, really good documentary. On a I think it was a 6 week long concert event in Harlem back in 1969. It was only over the weekends, but it's like every weekend they would have different entertainers come in, and had just about everybody from Motown showed up there. And the thing is, I think a documentary crew or a film crew from CBS News went to the event and actually taped it, the whole thing. And then it was put in a can and it was never aired. And it got like Walter Cronkite gave it like 1 minute just to mention it, because what was happening at that exact very same time was the concert in Woodstock, New York.
Oh,
Yeah, as well as uh, I think Stevie Wonder was on the stage at the very moment when Neil Armstrong, you know, set foot on the moon.
a lot of things came together at the same time and they were all very expansive and important events.
Yeah, and it just got like a little footnote, but it was an amazing uh, cultural and concert event, uh, and to be held right there in Harlem. And I think they said it was attended by like over 300,000 people.
My word.
You know,
Is it on YouTube?
it is on, what is it? I don't think it's on YouTube, but it is playing. It is airing. I think it's on like uh, Amazon Prime Video, but it's also
Okay.
in the movie theaters.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's what you said. Okay.
Yeah, and I'd seen some. There are some. It's not the whole film itself. It's just sort of like little segments of it and stuff on YouTube, and people talking about it, and you know, kind of the history behind it. But it's well worth seeing. And the thing is, it's you look at it in the historical context and how just attitudes about race relations and stuff like that were in the country. And it was just after a lot of the race riots and things had happened, and it just totally got ignored, and which was incredible with all the different things that were going on in the country, that it didn't get more attention than it did. And it's good. I mean, it's good that now, we're talking about, generations later, people can actually go see, a lot of those performers.
So how old were you in 1969? About 15 or 14?
In 16, yeah, I was probably about 16.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
20.
Well, wait a minute. No, I would have been Well, okay, in 69, 70, yeah, I was what, 15? Yeah, I was what, 15 and 55 to 60, 65, 70. Yeah, I would have been 15 years old, at that point. But yeah, just looking back at all that stuff, and it's a great documentary, and
We'll have to check it out. It sounds wonderful.
yeah, I mean, are you familiar with the music by Nina Simone?
Yes.
Right. I had never, ever seen her perform. I've listened to her music for years, but had never watched a performance by her. And they have a good, probably 20-minute segment with her on the stage. And she is, was just an amazing performer. So it was great to see that. So anyhow, so that was our 4th of July weekend.
Great. Wonderful.
Yeah. It seems like so long ago now.
I know.
A lot of, for whatever reason, it's like a lot of water has gone under the bridge since then. So many things have happened. Wow. Hey, Veronica.
Hello, how is everyone?
Well,
Great. How are you?
yeah, I just saw the top of your head, so I figured it was the haircut, dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I see Bernice is here, and Susan is here, and then Bob is here. Okay, well, Bob's painting is here.
I'm here.
Yeah, there we go. His head.
I'm hiding. He's a whole lot better looking than I am.
Right. Yeah. Well, a funny thing happens, Bob, when you lean backward like that. What happens is your head fades into the painting.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's not such a bad thing.
Yeah, and then you lean forward, and then all of a sudden it's like your head starts coming out of the painting. Okay.
Eloise just got on.
Did she?
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello.
Ilion just got on.
Ilan. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How you doing? And then John's here. Okay. How's everybody doing this Tuesday afternoon?
Good, thank you.
Okay. All right. We have long enough break, since the last time we've seen each other.
Yeah, like
Yesterday.
it. Like it.
It was yesterday, but it was just
Yeah, a whole.
yeah. It was actually over 24 hours. It was like wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Makes it seem like a while.
Yeah. Anyway, I had a couple things I wanted to mention to people that are quote unquote business related. Everybody is aware, right, that the multipurpose centers are now open on a restricted basis. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is anybody unaware of that?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Now, I don't know what's happening at Mills and Darnell and Bowden, but at the Benson Center, supposedly they were going to open up for limited classes in the fitness area, the gym and the pool. But the pool, from what I understand, they're having some issues with it. So the only thing really happening there right now is you can basically sign up to go in, and I think it's a half hour to 45 minutes, your time slot, to go into the gym to do a workout.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not allowing more than 2 people in the gym at a time. Okay. So the numbers are greatly reduced. Your access is limited. I think they said that's going to continue on till August the 2nd. And then they're going to open it up for some limited programming. Okay, like maybe a class on site per day. But there's not really going to be a lot of people there. And I don't know whether you guys receive this or not, but there was a fairly long list of things that you cannot do when you go to the center. Like congregate, socialize, eat lunch there. I mean, you can pick a lunch up to go, but they don't even want you to go outside and sit and congregate at the table. It's like, pick up your lunch, off of the premises, pretty much so. So it's still fairly restricted, okay? And for good reason. And
the thing about not going outside and congregating, I don't know what the reasoning is there for not going outside. You let the people go outside and say hello to each other,
Well, yeah. Again, right now they're just trying to be like very, very cautious.
Yeah, and which is better.
Yeah,
better be overly than under.
Yeah. It's better. It's better to err on the side of caution.
Right.
Yeah. Because the last thing that anybody wants to see happen is for somebody to end up getting COVID.
Yeah.
So yeah, that wouldn't be a good thing for anybody.
Be
So
careful for a whole year and a half and then go back and then get it. That would be tragic.
yeah, that really would be. Yeah.
Mhm.
And from what I've understood, and I don't have an actual list or things. And again, I can't speak for the other centers, but evidently, the people from Benson overall, there were very few cases of people who contracted COVID, from the Benson Center, which is good, which means that, the last year and a half has been worthwhile, that everybody's been able to stay relatively healthy and safe. So, thank goodness.
Well, India was at the Bowden Center yesterday. It sounds like they're a little more open than Benson as far as what they're doing.
And where were you at?
No, India. It was at Bowden.
India.
India.
Uh-huh.
And she got a meal there, and they were doing some plant giveaways, and they seemed a little more open than Benson. I don't know, just from what she had said.
Okay. Well, I mean, Benson, you can go get a meal. Anybody can go get a meal. Now you can't go get a meal and sit and eat there. That's the thing. They have meals to go because they don't want anybody, on the premises sitting there eating without, either without a mask or, congregating, at tables and things like that right now. So, that's fine. It is what it is.
I'll probably go over Friday and see if they have some fish.
Yeah. Now, Bernice, which center did you go to? Do you go to Bowden or do you go to
Bowden? Yes, Bowden.
Bowden? Okay. Yeah. 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 Again, I don't know what their schedule is. I know that overall.
9 to 1, I think.
Pardon?
I think it's 9 to 1.
Yeah, it's like, I think Benson is like from 9 o'clock to like 1. Well, actually, no, Benson is from like 7 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to 1:30 in the afternoon.
There's two emails explaining that thing.
Yeah, and that's what I was basically following up with people on, making sure that you guys got emails and.
I'm not getting those emails, and I had emailed Sabrina, and I haven't heard anything. So I don't know why I'm not getting any information the last couple of months.
Okay. Let me send her an email about that, and I'll send her your contact information because you should be. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to get all her emails, but all of a sudden it stopped. And I say I did send her an email just the other day, but haven't So the only thing I know what's going on is when I talk to you guys.
Well, yeah, if you just send it the other day, it may take a couple of days, to get into, the people who actually generate,
Yeah.
those emails and things.
Yeah.
So,
If I used to be on it, so I don't know what happened.
yeah. Well,
Did they terminate memberships at all or anything?
I don't think so. No. Mm-mm. No. Yeah.
Sure, in the email, there's a telephone number for the people to call and renew the membership.
Yeah, I'm not getting that. I'm not getting.
Let me go ask mommy.
It's in the email, I saw the telephone, if you want to renew use membership, you can do it on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But Susan, didn't you say you had to go in person?
Yeah, I had to go in person a couple weeks ago when I was there. Yeah.
Okay.
And they gave me like a cognitive test to make sure I was.
Oh, you must have talked to Ron McCauley.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ron, yeah. I had to meet with him.
Mhm.
So,
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I won't even go down that road.
I passed anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you passed, Susan. I really am. It's kind of
I think that with the cognitive, if you're an artist, you're less likely to have cognitive decline.
Okay.
Or more.
yeah. I think generally, as being an artist, we have other kinds of decline.
Right.
Again,
But that's subject for another time, right?
yeah, that's a whole nother.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, we could go down that road. Wow, this could go so many places. Anyway, let's get back on track. The great news is, thank you all for sending in quite a bit of work. We've got a lot to cover today. We got some great stuff. Some of you are working on some really, really good stuff here. So that being said, anybody got anything that they need to talk about? Anything, questions, anything else before we jump into this?
No.
I'm taking silence as a no. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's get started. Anyway, we're going to start with Mr. Armando. We get to see Armando.
Oh, okay. About me.
Yes, it's all about you, Armando.
I will accept negative critique because I wanted to fix that picture. So
Oh,
don't be
that's cool.
afraid to say it. Be honest. It is bad, ugly, whatever, just say it.
I think it's cool.
It's nice.
Okay. So okay, Armando, are you sitting down?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So I want you to listen to the two ladies that just spoke to you, okay? And they both liked it, okay? And so I'm going to do my usual Charles thing, okay? Which
I don't
is,
like the legs.
well, I'm gonna tell you what I think could be better about it, but I'm also going to tell you what is really nice about it, okay? And you've been painting for what, about 2 years now?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and you don't paint on a regular basis, which is one of the things that are kind of holding you back. If you did more, you would get more comfortable with it. But I honestly have to say, in looking at this is actually one of your very best paintings I've seen you do. Okay?
This is from that house in the high
Yep.
corner.
I know exactly where it's from. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, we were out at Lost Corner, and the thing is, you've got some nice variation in value. The composition is actually pretty well done. The only thing I would say that could change really about the composition is that this wall, and I know where you were sitting and looking at the model,
Mm-hmm.
and it did pretty much so what you have it doing, which is, basically running horizontally across the page. I probably would have fudged it a little bit and angled it a little bit more or something so that it wasn't quite, horizontal. And plus, remember, right at that point, that path did kind of go downhill, and you've got a little bit of that. But I would probably push it a little bit more on this end, maybe push it up some. But
Mhm.
overall, your values are really pretty good. Things sit in relationship to each other, correctly. Now you've done some pretty basic, preliminary work in getting a figure to sit there. And okay, so your complaint is about the legs. Okay. Yeah, they seem a little short for the overall size of the body and the head, right? But
Mhm.
Armando, that's not a hard thing to fix. And the fact is, when she was sitting there, she was kind of she wasn't really short, but her proportions, she had a hard time touching the ground,
Yeah.
when she was sitting there, and her feet were her toes were kind of pointed down. But all you have to do is basically, I would take the blue from the jeans and I
Mhm.
would just move it up a little bit, maybe to about right there.
Yeah.
See, and then that would lengthen that front, that lower part of the leg,
Yeah.
so it would look more proportional, to her figure.
Yeah.
It's not a hard fix, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
And other than that, you could push some of the values. Like there were some lights and things back here.
Yeah, that's what it looked dark to me. I want to make it a little bit light up, a little bit more.
Yeah. Now, one thing you could do is you could maybe make it a little bit darker, but also gray it down a little bit, lower the intensity of the color. And that way your darker leaves up here would still, separate away from it. So when I say darker, a little bit darker, not nearly as dark as this. Okay.
Mhm.
And again, just mute the color a little bit if you wanted to. But even as it is right now, it still works. So is that something that you really need to go fix? You could, but yeah, for the fact of that you were painting this on location from life, and that you got as much done as you did on the painting, it was a pretty good effort. You did pretty well. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. We're gonna, we could look at Armando number 2. Same. He sent 2. I don't know why. Same photograph, I think. Anyway, Bernice. Okay. So this is Bernice's drawings from Friday, and I'm just gonna kind of go through them real quick before I make any real comment on any one of them. Right.
Okay.
I like how what you say. Go for it.
Yeah. But just kind of take a look at what she was doing here. And the thing is, she's got a really nice consistency, to her drawings, right? No, we seem to have a double in here for her. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so when you look at them collectively, overall, Bernice, you have a very, very clear hand, the way you draw. And so it's very consistent through all the drawings, which is a good thing. Okay. Now, let's put these in context to what they are. Okay. They're 20-minute drawings. They're not, and yes, they are of people's faces. Are they a portrait? No. Okay.
These were 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes, except for the last one.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Or were they 10 or 15?
10.
10 except for the last one.
Oh, okay. All right. So basically, for a 10-minute drawing, and what you should be concerned about, because faces are very complicated, and you really have to spend, it's that thing that Barbara Bradley talked about all the time, in drawing classes at the Academy of Art, which is, all right, you got a 10-minute drawing. How much time should you actually draw? And her answer was 5 minutes. You need to be spending 5 minutes looking at that person and figuring out what their proportions and things are, in their face, and really what the big shapes and the relationships are before you ever make a mark. See, that was her approach, and and I remember getting tapped on the head more than once, because I started drawing way too soon. She would walk around the room and she'd she always had this, this long ruler yardstick that she would kind of walk around with, and she would just kind of tap on the floor, and she was walking behind you and you were drawing. So you could always hear her coming. And every once in a while, she would just kind of tap you on the shoulder or the top of the head, to let you know, you're jumping into this, way too soon. She wouldn't talk to you. She would just kind of walk around and just to kind of stop you in your tracks. But, she would, she basically, I agree with her. The problem with most people trying to draw anything or paint anything is we don't spend enough time really looking, figuring out what it is that we're actually seeing. And so that we kind of propel ourselves into the drawing, with a lot of excitement and enthusiasm and stuff. And then, a few minutes into it, we start kind of struggling with where we're placing things because we really didn't take the time to really look at it and figure it out before we, started making marks. So overall,
Is
yeah.
that what you're saying I consistently do? Consistently seem to start drawing before I look too carefully?
Yeah.
Okay.
And not just you. Okay. Yeah, it's not, you're not.
It's obvious that I start, but it's obvious that I start a little early.
Yeah. Now, and that's the thing. See, I think if you would take more time, and spend more time looking than you do drawing, one, it would stop you from restating and making. Sorry about that.
Redrawing a line that I already have.
Yeah, it's like, why restate lines? Okay. You put it down there once, and what happens when you go back in and you well, no, it's not really there. It's just a little more over to the left or the right. And you put down that second or that third or fourth line, basically what that says is, I'm not really sure. See,
Okay.
rather than just putting the line down and going, okay, yeah, this is where I see it here. Okay. So I've got the outline of the face, the cheekbone or the forehead or whatever it is. And so, just be careful with stuff like that. Some of the drawing, overall, when you look at it, you recognize the people who you were drawing very clearly. So you have some likeness or some sense of who each and every one of them, were, right? And again, just a few less, overstating these lines, and you would have had, a much nicer drawing.
Okay.
So it's really kind of about, just be more patient and try to simplify it,
Does that drawing remind you of you a little bit?
Oh yeah, I like that drawing of me. That's a great drawing of me, by the way. Yeah.
Yes. That is you. Huh.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me, when I look at that guy, I kind of think, he's probably like a shaker, type farmer or something like that. it kind of, for whatever reason, it just kind of strikes me that way. But yeah, that's really a fun drawing to me. I like that a lot. You know, one in particular that, this one.
I need to ask you about the little girl. That's what I had. I couldn't figure out how to make her look young.
Yeah, well, and we are kind of talking about that with all of these people. Okay, so it's kind of the same thing. Like this, I mean, there are parts of this drawing that are really beautiful. You know, just the eyes and the placement and the overall proportion are really, really nice. And if you would have just kind of kept that down to a single line on the jawline and the outline of the face, you know, you would have been done. Okay. And the drawing would have been, and this is a Barbara Bradley term, you know, the drawing would appear to have more authority.
Right.
Okay. So what does that really mean? It just would basically, it translates into, when you look at it, it's like the viewer wouldn't question whether you know, were kind of true to what you saw or not. You know, if you just put down that single line, it's like, okay, that's the way they saw it. It's a conversation, it's a statement, right? And so when I put down, you know, 4 or 5 lines and I'm not really sure, you know, the person looking at it later on sees that and it's like, okay, yeah, they didn't really know. So let's look at the little girl. Okay, now the little girl, should I do this? Yeah, the little girl happens to be my granddaughter, my first granddaughter.
Okay.
Her name is Audrey. Okay, and so it's like, okay, so how when you're drawing a child, how would you go about doing that? You know, and make it, you know, look like the drawing of a child. Well, if you go back and, you know, look back through art history, let's go back to the Renaissance, okay? And let's talk about some people who are old masters, okay? You know, people such as, like, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Donatello, and you look at their drawings and their sketchbooks, and, you know, they drew these really interesting people, you know, the adults. But every time that they drew a child or a, like, let's say a cherub, you know, which is supposed to be childlike, right? They looked like little old people. They really didn't look like children, right? And children are tough. You know, they are, you know, if in drawing portraits and things, children are probably far tougher than, you know, drawing somebody who has a lot of age character on their face. And the reason for that is that it doesn't take much to really age, you know, like a young baby or a 3 or 4 year old. Now, Audrey was about probably 3.5, you know, when that photograph was taken. She's now about 4.5. But, you know, let's talk specifically about this drawing, okay? And again, you know, the thing that makes this drawing look, you know, like it's a much older person is, again, you've overstated, you've added a lot of extra line work and stuff in there that you really didn't know, you know, need to. The other thing is with the nose, you've kind of lengthened it and you overstate, you know, it's like when you're not sure, it's like you double down on it for some reason. It's like you make an even stronger statement, you know, rather than it's like trying to be delicate with it and light. So, and particularly if you want to make someone look young, let's say a young teenage girl or even a baby or something like that, you need to use more delicate, lighter line work, right? And not really bear down, you know, with that pencil, and kind of, you know, really push it, you know, because there's nothing that hard in their face, you know, children tend to have, you know, like very soft kind of rounded forms. And so none of those outlines are going to be like really dark or really crisp, right? They're going to be a little bit softer. And then again, overstating, he tends to, make, the drawing look older, than what you maybe intended. Okay. Now we're going to talk about hair. I'm not going to talk about it right now, but we are going to talk about hair. But this is a pretty classic example. And again, you're not the only one. There was a lot of people that had trouble with drawing hair. And the thing is, hair is not long, straight, lineal lines that run parallel to each other, because hair doesn't really do that. If you look at anybody's hair, it has kind of a shape to it, or a series of shapes to it. And again, trying to get in there and draw every little strand of hair, it's too much. So a lot of times you just have to simplify it down to a simple shape, and let it go. Maybe you indicate where a core shadow or something is. But again, you can underdo it, and just suggest that there's something there rather than, spend a lot of time, trying to draw in every little strand of hair, because, yeah, it just doesn't seem to work very well. And you did that mainly on her, but even, in some of these other drawings, and we'll go back to me again, right? See, that could have just been a simple shape. You didn't really need all that in there. With the beard and the mustache, see, rather than individual hairs, just again, think of it as a shape. Kind of going across the top of my lip, and then there's a definite shape, down here along, my jawline, and the shape it makes on my face. Let's see here. Yeah, kind of the same thing. See, just a couple of lines in a more simplified shape. You can add value to it if you want to say that it's darker hair, but you don't really have to. Okay. Again, it can just be kind of reduced, to a simpler term. Same thing with her. Okay. So the main thing, Bernice, is just take a deep breath, spend more time looking, try to make less lines, and make the lines that you do make count, right?
I shall do it.
Yeah, just be a little more thoughtful about, okay, if I'm gonna draw a nose.
What happens is you think 10 minutes, I gotta go.
Right. Yeah, I know. But, you have to remember that 10 minutes is an incredibly long time, actually, when you're drawing. It really is. And the other thought I would give to you is that if I had one thing to change about when I learned to draw, probably the thing that I would keep in mind is that maybe not finishing the drawing and being more accurate about what I do draw.
Oh, okay.
Would probably be more helpful to me than getting the drawing finished.
Okay.
Okay? Because it's all about, kind of connecting that eye, that brain, and that hand to get that line or that, the pencil or tool that you're using to do what you really want it to do. It's about being intentional, about being conscious about the mark that you're making, and not just making a mark. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So that being said, we're going to move on. We're going to look at Bob. Okay? And again, I'm going to do the same thing with Bob that I did with Bernice, and I'm going to do the same thing with all of you, just to let you know. So we're going to be fair about all of this. So I'm going to just kind of thumb through his drawings real quick, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about a couple of them, okay? And so these are all Bob's. Okay. And so that's all the portraits. Okay. And again, you know, when you look at these collectively, you can see, you know, almost immediately that the way Bob draws and his marks and things like that are very, very different than Bernice's, right? You know, so each of them have an individual kind of like signature to the way they use the media and the tool, okay? And that's a good thing. That's something that, we're all born with, and whether you know it or not, it's already there. You don't have to develop it. You know, it's going to come out. Okay. Now, can you get more sophisticated and more understanding, and maybe get better at, you know, drawing faces and things like that? Sure. You know, it's practice. But when, you know, when you look at the,
Face are we looking at right here?
pardon?
Which face are we looking at?
This is Anne Hathaway, the long drawing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this was the last one. Okay.
Oh,
So in looking at all of these, you know, I would say the same thing's true, you know, with Bob. You know, he got a good likeness, you know, in each of these drawings. And, you know, pretty much so you can tell who it was, you know, that he was drawing. You know, again, this is another version of me. Okay. And it's not a bad version of me. You know, I look at that, you know, I look at that and I go, okay, yeah, that's me. You know,
I was thinking that were you now.
that was not me. No, that's,
Yes, I was thinking that being said, it looked like Charles.
yeah, no, it does actually. It's got a bit of me in there. You know, now you know, this drawing seems to be a little closer than this one, but this was the first drawing. And, you know, Bob kind of started off, and again, he did a lot of the same things you did, Bernice, which is he overstated like a lot of the lines and things. And then he would go back and he would restate them and kind of double down, you know, on that statement. You know, and it didn't work out so well on this particular drawing. He got better on me, and then as he went through, you know, the series of drawing, that's a really nice drawing, you know, and even the little girl, see? And again, you know, she looks quite a bit younger, you know, than say, you know, yours or some of the others. And again, because he didn't overwork, you know, any of the features. Now, again, just like with you, it could be better if he had gone back in and just seen this as an overall shape and not tried to get, again, you know, all the little strands of the hair and stuff in there. Not really necessary, okay? And particularly on a 10-minute drawing. But the one thing that kind of helps this drawing work and look like a child is when you look at the overall proportions, you know, in the face, a little more childlike. You know, now he might be a little bit high on the eyebrow. And again, you know, we're talking just a little bit. So it's probably actually more down here, because younger children, the proportions in their face are different than an adult. An adult kind of falls into that general like 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 category. Children are they start at about 1/2, and all the features are in the lower half of the face, particularly if you're talking about a child that's, say, below like 5 or 6 years old. You know, babies, things like that. You're really, all the facial features are down in that lower half, and then they have these large, you know, craniums. And that's basically because of the way that the human face develops. You know, that brain case and things like that, it continues to grow, and the bones will fuse over time. But it doesn't grow that much. You know, the part of the head that grows is really that, you know, the front bones in the face, the jaw, you know, the, you know, up around the nose, things like that. All of those bones develop and get much bigger, as you age. And as that happens, then those proportions begin to stretch out a little bit until you get to that 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3 kind of ideal, proportion. Now that doesn't happen with everybody, but generally speaking. And so she's a little more like an adult proportion, when you really look at her. He used that 1/3. But he kept the drawing soft enough so she still looks, fairly young. So, you got to really kind of captured her. There's something about the mood of, that the image that we worked from. There was something about sort of the feel of that, and you did a really good job of capturing that in that drawing, Bob.
Thank you.
That
That was probably my least favorite person.
That's probably your least favorite?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorites of yours. Now, the other one that I really liked, and we talked about her, was, the African woman.
Right.
With the scarf, and again, you've got a really nice drawing there. And, fairly simplified things, but it works. It works really, really well.
Seems like her eyes were very intense. On her,
Yeah. They were very much so the focal point,
Yes.
I mean, yeah, you couldn't get away from that gaze. It's,
Right.
very direct with her. Now the Buddhist monk, again, when you look at the proportions, the actual facial features, things like that, placement is fine, but the overall proportion of the front plane of the face to the rest of the head seems to be off. This is much too large for this. So, he could have had a much bigger and rounder, head than he did.
If I remember correctly, I kind of feel like I was kind of looking up from a lower angle at him. That's probably
Right.
Well, maybe a little short. I think that's what I remember.
Yeah, he was. He was a little bit above our eye level,
Right.
So you kind of saw the bottom plane of his nose and stuff, which you don't often see. But yeah, we were just slightly looking up at him, and it's the eyes and things like that were really kind of more of an angle, because of that. You drew it more like we were kind of at his eye level, because of the way that these kind of fall in line. But it's mainly, my impression is that it's just that something in the proportion, of the overall head in the cranial area to the, front plane of the face. Let's see. Yeah. He had a really interesting face. I think out of all the faces that we drew, he had probably the most interesting face of anybody. And a lot of character in his face and stuff. And you pretty much have captured, the overall proportion in here and the distance. And the overall proportion, from the front plane of the face to the overall mass of the head. I think you got down pretty well. With this guy, the Native American guy, I think a lot of people struggled with him.
Yeah.
He was kind of like, it was kind of like that drawing of Anne Hathaway. She had this very, very intense gaze, and there was a kind of a mood or feeling, to that image. And I think you got it with her. With him, not so much.
Yeah, I missed him. I agree.
Yeah, but that's fine.
You can't be perfect, right?
None of us are. It's fine. But the thing is, okay, so how would we get it, to maybe look, more like him? And again, it's kind of like what I was saying with Bernice. It's like, spend more time looking and make more definitive statements. It's a simple thing of, okay, I see the nose and there's a shape there, and it's here. Just make the mark and leave it alone. Okay, and I say this to people all the time. The first time you put that mark down is probably as accurate as the 100th time you'll put it down. Okay, you know, it's just look, you know, draw it the way you see it. You know, when you make that mark, it's like, okay, yeah, that's kind of what I see. Put it down and let it go, and move on to the next thing. You know, don't overwork it. Don't belabor it. You know, and that will all, you know, just that in itself will make your drawings better almost instantly. You know, I know, you know, that's hard to believe sometimes, but try it, you know, and it will. And, you know, you may not, you know, at first, you know, get a true likeness of that person, or you may not feel like you really get them, you know, all the time. But if you just keep doing that, you know, you'll get to the point where, you know, you're placing those lines more accurately, and you'll get closer and closer to a likeness of the person that you're drawing. I promise you. Okay. So, but yeah, overall, you know, it was a nice series of drawings you did.
Thank you.
Now, I have to give you the award today for being the most prolific person. You know, you did a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I was busy this weekend. Yeah.
Yes, you were. Okay, you were. Okay, and here's something that cropped up that I thought, wow, that's a really nice study. You must have gone out and bought some peaches.
I did, and this one was getting too ripe, and I was going to eat it. So, but I figured, well, let me draw it first, and then.
Okay. Yeah.
But what if you look at the very bottom,
Mhm.
I did a little grayscale. There
Right. Yeah.
On the bottom.
Yeah, I
Which
saw
would
that.
help.
Now, your photographs, unfortunately, kind of cut most of it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I see that you did a value scale, and you pretty much so stayed. You know, you set it up. It looks like a 5 step
6 positions.
6. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, but you pretty much have stayed at least with that 5. You know, on the peach itself, and you know, you got a nice sense of volume and form on that. And when you look at it, you don't think it's an orange or anything. It's like, that's a peach. You know, so I thought you did that. That was a really nice kind of successful drawing for you. Okay, and it's got a nice feel to it. One of the things I want to comment on that worked really pretty well with this. Notice how when you put the tone down, how you didn't put it down in a straight line, and you kind of followed the form. See, and you were a lot more conscientious about putting down your shading and tone and stuff on this peach than you were, you know, say on some of your drawings.
I took a good bit more time with the peach,
Okay,
but that was not a 10-minute drawing.
okay, all right. But again, you know, it's like if you slow down and you think about what you're doing and you're very intentional and conscientious about it, you do a lot of the right things, you know, that will work for you. It's just that you have to, you know, maybe figure out how to do it faster, you know, within 10 minutes, you know, and you know, keep that, okay, I'm doing a round, you know, when you actually look at a face, don't think of it as a face. Think of it as, okay, it's a rounded shape. Now I'm going to get it to feel like it's got some dimension and form. And one of the ways that you can do that is with how you lay down those values in tone, and not just, you know, kind of a straight, you know, 45-degree angle, you know, to lay in a tone or a shade, right? Because that flattens it out, you know. Where this, see, you've kind of worked around the form, and it moves, you know, in a direction that suggests that this is actually round. So yeah, nice, you know, very successful drawing for you there. I'm going to skip your fire lady just for a moment. I'm going to skip ahead since we're mainly talking about drawings right now. And I wanted to look at this drawing. and you've got a variety of bottles here, and with some very strong cast shadows, and then you've got some pieces of fruit. I would assume that over to the far left, that's a mango, right?
Yes, and I got to looking at the mango and looking at it in just graphite,
Mhm.
and it looks kind of like a misshapen rugby football.
Okay.
I mean, it's just not interesting. So therefore, I says, well, how do I make that interesting?
Ah.
So I added the green and the red to kind of give it some interest.
Yeah.
Basically, for a very boring piece of fruit.
Well, and I agree with you, in the sense that adding the green and the red to it brought a whole nother dimension to it and made it, easier to recognize as a mango. But in the context of what we're looking at, overall, you've got a graphite drawing. And it brings me to the question of why does just this one element have color? And
Because my answer is because.
because that's what I did. Okay.
That's what turned out.
Yeah. So I'm going to challenge you on this one, okay? And what I'm going to say to you is that, what I would like to see here is that you draw this mango. And, I'm not saying change this drawing, okay? But go back and try to draw that mango again. Just try to draw it in graphite and look at the change in value and try to apply a lot of the same approaches and principles to that mango that you did with that peach.
Mango.
Yeah, and I'll bet you that it will begin to look more like a mango. Okay.
Well, because my mango that I used as my reference, the red and the green on the bottom were almost exactly the same value.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's the challenge right there, is how without looking flat. And so anyway.
But now I have a question for you. Okay. They may actually be the same value. And when you squint your eye down, but remember you're working at graphite, so you've got some choices here. So you could actually make a decision like, okay, well, the red is actually the brighter color and stuff, so I'm going to leave it lighter and I'm going to make the green just a little bit darker, so I can differentiate and I can actually say that there was a change in at least color, or value, in these two areas. So you can make a decision to do that, to get the effect that you want. But also, again, it's about the way you draw it and about how you lay down those values and tones so that they move around to form and that they actually, begin to feel round. So, again, I'd like to see you try, to draw the mango a couple more times until you kind of work that out in your head about, how you would go about that. And this, I'm assuming that's a pear.
Yeah.
And is this another peach?
That look like a coconut. Too small to be a coconut.
It's too small to be a pear?
No. The other one, it has a shape like a coconut, but it's too small to be a coconut.
Oh,
that's not a,
yeah, I didn't say it was a coconut. I said it was a peach.
Okay.
Onion to me.
Pardon?
Looks like an onion to me.
Looks like that.
But Bob, if you put color in the mango, why you didn't put color in the pear and the peach and the?
Where have you been? We've just been talking about that for 5 minutes.
I know. I'll walk away for a little.
Okay.
Oh,
anyway.
No, against the other black and white myself.
Yeah, and so, basically, and this is, I'm not saying you have to do anything, but I would go back and, minus the bottles, I would just, set the fruit up and try to draw them a couple of times and figure out, how to use the value, and the way, the direction, that you lay down the tone and stuff to begin to make them feel like they've got, more volume and round, and they'll begin to look like the pieces of fruit that they are. I mean, they're recognizable. And I probably would have recognized that as a mango, even without the red or the green. So yeah, go back and
Right.
try that again, maybe. Okay.
I was very pleased with my bottles. So
Yeah. I'm, you notice I haven't said much about the bottles,
no,
right. And, the bottles are fine. I kind of got the fact that, this has got a stopper on it, and I'm assuming there's some kind of oil in there, like olive oil or cooking oil or something like that.
That's a Geneva.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's in this bottle.
it was gin.
Oh,
It was a couple of my in-laws had these things, and they had them for a long time, and I emptied them out years ago and was wondering what I was going to do with those bottles. I've saved the bottles, but they're yeah.
Well, they're great to use for still lives and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They had a lot of character to it. So, okay. But yeah, the bottles are working pretty well, and these two pieces of fruit are working pretty well. And I get the fact that that's a mango, again, it's just that you've added color to it. And I don't think you really needed to, I think you would have been okay without it. So, just, it's just me. All right.
Thank you.
We got your shark again, and so you softened them up even more. Now I got
Darkened teeth.
Yeah, you got the teeth in there.
And then I re-scraped the eyes, the white around the eyes, because there had been some overspray with some of the stuff I had been using on the airbrush. So
Yeah.
So it brightened the eye up a little bit.
Right. Yeah, and so when I squint down and I'm looking at this, the eye is stronger, and the eye kind of comes forward more now. So, so we fixed that issue, and the shark overall, it doesn't look flat. Now, the face goes backward, and this has gotten softer. So again, this part's coming forward, this part's moving back. I still think, with the teeth, even though you darken them a little bit, it's just, I don't know if there's a way that you can go back in and do this, but, just trying to soften up that edge. We know that they're sharp, and we know that they're, in a shark's mouth. But the problem still is that the edges are too hard.
Okay.
And again, it's going back, but it's not really doing what we need it to do, which is
It's too defined.
yeah.
Okay.
And because of the way you treated the rest of the shark, it's like, the softer you can begin to make these and still see them, the more they're going to sit up under his face,
Okay.
and that eye's going to come forward. Okay.
Will a glaze soften it enough, or several glazes?
Well,
Right.
go ahead.
Well, what I was thinking before you said that, Gene, what I was thinking about was just taking one of the tools that I have and just roughing the edges up to make them look a little more gray rather than that intense black that's backing it up. Maybe
Yeah.
that would soften the edges up.
Yeah. Well, and then another thing you might do is you might mix up a gray, and with your airbrush, just kind of lightly, go around the edges of that, just to sort of, soften it up a bit. Because I think if you use a scraping tool, that's going to make a sharper line, and it's already sharp enough. We're trying to make it blurrier. Okay. So I would probably, since you have an airbrush, go ahead and use it and just kind of fuzz those up a little bit so that they're not quite so crisp. And I think I think it'll be fine.
Okay.
Because yeah, if I just put my finger like over the teeth itself, it's like all the rest of the shape of the shark, the underside of the head and stuff, works. I mean, it goes backward, as you move over to the left. But as soon as you move your finger out of the way and those teeth are there, they really jump forward still.
Now, Bob, how you made those little things around look like a bubble or something? How you made it so little? I couldn't make it like that.
Oh, the little tiny?
Uh-huh.
That's what's called overspray.
Oh.
When I was painting the white, and I had sometimes the airbrush gets a little spattery,
Uh-huh.
and so those all came from they kind of add to the picture, really.
Well, it's really, when you see on TV, those show in the water at the end, they have those little things, yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's just overspray.
No.
Yep. All right. Well, it didn't hurt anything.
No.
All right. So let's talk about Bob's last and
But basically, I've been working on the lady,
Mhm.
and her face is just about to get where I want it. Not quite. I've still got a little more work to do on that. But then I've got to work on the rocks and the sky and all.
Right.
But her face it's much more like a face than it was before.
Okay.
And so I worked on her arms and her hands and the shading on her body. So it's coming.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that really work pretty nicely about this. Okay. And what I would say to you about the face is stop.
Okay.
Let the face go. It's a face. You know that it's a female. You see eyes, where the features are, the proportions are all overall pretty good. Okay. When you squint down and you look at, how the light is falling on the figure, overall, it's working really, really well. Now, there's a couple little odd areas in here that I want to bring out, your attention to. Like, for example, here on the neck, you've got this lighter value in there.
Yeah. Yes.
To kind of wrap around. I would get rid of that. I just, don't worry about it. Just let it fall back into that mid-tone and just get rid of it. Because it gets confusing. It's like she's almost got like some kind of jewelry or something that's wrapped around her neck. Because it just doesn't feel like it should belong there. Unless you're trying to tell me that those are the collarbones, but that would be, much lower. And those might catch some light, but yeah, I would just kind of get rid of that in there.
Okay.
The other thing I'd say, this leg back here, you've got this one leg, which would be in shadow, and you're right. But then you've got this other leg and it's got a lot of light on it. And it may have some light, but overall, it's kind of a little bit too important right now.
Okay.
And probably the way I would treat that is, there would probably be a shadow on the side of the leg that we're seeing anyway. I would just make that a darker shape,
Okay.
And I would make it darker than this.
Okay.
See, and it will sit behind it. It's my afternoon for getting phone calls out of the blue. Sorry about that. But yeah, I would just kind of darken that whole calf area down, and then I don't really see the other ankle. Maybe there's some of it back here, but again, just darken all of that down and make it darker in value than, what the leg that's closer to us is. So
Okay.
behind it. but yeah, that's really the only two things about the figure. Overall, the lighting works, really nicely. How you've got the upper leg lit here and here on the inside. You can probably make the light on this area, the inside of that leg that's closer to us. You can
Right.
probably make that brighter. And if you make that brighter, then that's going to push all of this more into shadow,
Okay.
right? So, just take it up like a value or two. So it's probably closer to what's on the arm or on the breast here or the face. And really, say, okay, yeah, this is in light, and just let it be. And it's really just this, don't mess with the other leg, leave
Okay.
that alone, leave the body alone. It's really just that little triangle right there. Just pop in a little more light in there and get rid of that. And I think, I think it'd be fine. As far as the hands go, things like that, this really dark value in here, you probably need to tone that down just a little bit. It's
Okay.
a little too overstated.
Okay.
You get the idea that, okay, there's the palm of the hand and then, the rest of the pad, and that's sunk in, but it's like it's maybe a little bit too dark
Okay.
in there. But overall, it reads the hand. This hand, is you read the position of it and the fingers, so all of that works. So yeah, this is really much better, as far as the figure goes, from where you had started. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and then I guess the only other thing I'd say is like right here at the top of the shoulder, you could kind of clean that line up, and
Okay.
make it a little more defined and not quite so fuzzy.
Okay.
If I can make a comment,
Yeah.
I'm sure the color of the rocks is is part of the fire that's in the hair. But to be honest, Bob, I liked your rocks better when they didn't have the yellow and the red on them.
Okay.
Yeah, it looked
All right.
almost like a semi-precious stone or something, like you had like it was a part of a dig or something.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice.
Oh,
All right. Yeah. So moving on. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think you've made a lot of improvements, on the painting, and it seems to be headed the right direction. So that's good. So we're going to talk about Eloise, okay, and her drawings. And I'm going to do the same thing to Eloise I've done to everybody else. So, there's one page drawing, and then here's the other. Okay. Now, Eloise has gone about this, in a much more organized fashion. So she's kind of gridded off her page, and she put people, in these separate, little, vignettes or little, canvases there. And overall, again, when you look at the drawings, immediately you recognize, who these people are, since we all drew the same thing. And so you know who they are. And again, she probably struggled more on this face than, any of the others. And, she did, a pretty decent job, in getting a likeness on each of them. Now, one thing, you were probably more successful at getting Audrey, the little girl, and making her feel like a little girl than anybody has so far, okay? And so, that looks like a young child. And so you can definitely tell an age difference between her and her or her. These both look like adult women, this looks like a young child. So you're fairly successful with that. The way that you laid in the tone overall, could have been a little softer, a little more subtle, if you're going to do that. But again, your proportions and the actual drawing itself, she looks, fairly age appropriate. You saw, and were probably more successful at capturing sort of the shape of what was going on, you know, in the hair and how she was wearing her hair. And so, you know, those shapes and things help define and sort of describe the form of the skull, you know, that's laying under it. And so that works, you know, in there. You know, when you get to this woman's face, again, you know, you saw the hair as sort of an element and a shape, and that works. You know, the proportions in her face are pretty good. You've kind of captured the expression. She had a pretty broad, open smile, which was really, really nice. So again, you know, you look at that and you know who that is. You know, this, come back here. This character right here, you know, in the lower left-hand corner, you know, I think you got him. You know, he has got a nice feel to the drawing. And, you know, you got the sense and the proportions, you know, of the head and the face. The features sit, you know, on the planes, you know, fairly well. The only thing I would say, let me go back. I have to really go back and look at that again. You know, I know that I had a lot of light, you know, like on my forehead and across the top of my nose and my cheekbones here. But right about in here, right, rather than bringing that light all the way across, if there would have just been a little bit of a tone right in there to define, you know, and separate the side plane of the head from the front, you know, you would have turned that head and made it feel a little more dimensional. And it's just a real subtle thing, but, you know, it probably, you know, could have helped, you know. And you've kind of started it right here with the hairline. If from this line over was just a little bit darker, and then it, like, same thing happened here on the back part of the cheekbone. Probably would have worked a little bit better. Now, was this your first attempt at this African lady?
Yes.
Okay.
And the label on the left at the top was just left over on the page, so I just
Mhm.
tried to use a page I had already started.
Oh, okay. Oh, so this was already here.
The one on the top left was already there.
Right, that's what I'm saying, the top
Yeah,
left. The one
right.
with the, okay, yeah. All right, yeah, so, yeah. Yeah, she's very similar, you know, in some ways, other than she's got a much longer kind of spacing in her proportion, and her face isn't quite as round. But, you know, with the hair or the scarf, you know, I kind of seen this as a shape could be a scarf. I thought you were trying to draw her at first, but okay, not the case. At any rate, you know, you got the shape. I like the way that you simplified the shape of her face. The one thing that, you know, in looking at trying to draw her was how round, you know, the forms in her face were, and how they're really, you know, there was no great change in light, you know, light and shadow. You know, it was this very soft light on her, and the skin tone was very even. So, you know, trying to delineate any form on her was really tough, and you almost had to just reduce her down to, you know, pretty simple line work. But you got a good feel, you know, again, for the overall proportions in her face. And, you know, you've kind of captured the idea of the scarf on her head. The only thing I would say here is, like, again, you know, the facial proportions are really good. But, you know, when you come to the scarf, this probably could have been about 10 to 15% bigger. You know,
Okay.
there's probably a little bit more up there than what you've got. All right.
Right.
I'm going to blow these up a little bit so we can look at them a little more individually. You know, the Indian woman, right?
Oh,
Yeah, you got it. You know, she's got a lot of character in her face and things. You
I
did.
thought that was a man.
I thought it
Wait a
was
minute,
amazing.
Yeah, this is the Indian. Yeah, the Native American. All right.
It is a man, right?
Yeah, yeah, okay. All right, I got it confused with, where was the, oh, okay, yeah, she's up here, yeah. Yeah, the Hindu woman. Okay, right. Yeah, so we're talking about the Native American guy here. Okay, yeah, so that looks more like him. That makes sense. Sorry. I'm getting confused here. All right, and you got a lot of the intensity in the eyes, you know, that was there, you know, with him. That was the thing. Him and Anne Hathaway, they both had this really, really sort of intense look to them, and you really kind of captured it in him pretty well. You know, the Buddhist monk. Okay, you know, again, you know, you've got, I think, the feel of him. Again, you know, I think the skull area and stuff, you know, could be a little bit bigger. You know, he had his overall proportion of his face to the mass of his like cranial area and stuff. You know, there was more head there than face.
Mm.
Yeah. And then this guy, you nailed him. I mean, you've got him down, you know, really, really well. And generally his proportions, you know, and expression, you know, all of that works really, really nicely. And the same thing with Anne, you know, Hathaway. You know, again, you kind of capture that intensity, you know, to her expression, you know. And when you look at it, I mean, overall, whoop, come back here. I keep trying to move the cursor and it keeps doing, you know, weird stuff. You know, I think you captured, you know, what was going on there really nicely. And again, I'm glad that you didn't like overwork, you know, the hair. And you just kind of simplified it into a shape and a value. And pretty much so the same thing with him. You know, it works, you know, as a shape and a value. And that's really all you needed.
Okay.
So that works really pretty well. When we get to the peppers, okay, did you do anything different to these?
I softened the shadows and I took that the reflection from the pepper on the right hand back. I took that off and
Okay.
I think it was about all. I think I put a darker line around the edge where the shadow and the pepper meet.
You mean right in here?
Yeah, and on the side too.
Okay.
Where it touches the table. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I just used Payne's Grado so it's not black.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right.
What
Well,
else can you do with that?
yeah, I mean, they're working, you know, as far as you're getting the sense of the form, and the shadow is laying down on the table and it's not as hard as it was. So it looks a lot more natural than it did. Okay. Yeah. Right. So
I
is
can
it,
sign that then, right?
yeah, yeah. I was going to ask you, you know, so are you going to call that done?
Done.
Okay. All right. Good deal. All right. So we got John up next. We got quite a few with John too. He's been doing a lighthouse. Actually, he's been doing a couple of lighthouses. John, you there?
Yeah.
Okay. So where's this lighthouse at? Do we know?
No, I don't. That's what my friend asked me too when they saw it. They said, where is it? I don't know. So I got the pictures off the web, but I didn't make note of where they were located.
Okay.
I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice painting.
Very nice.
Yeah. Let's blow it up. We can see it a little bit better. There we go. See, I can do my job, you know, and get it to where you guys can see them. Yeah, the way you basically, you know, you got the lighthouse in there. You've got a sense of the direction of the light, where the light's coming from. You know, basically from the right. You know, shadows fall to the left for the most part. And then, you know, it seems to be sitting up above, you know, the water, and then as you go off to the background, you know, everything, you just sort of lose a horizon line back in there. It kind of fades back, you know, into the sky. So
Right.
it feels like something you can see at the shoreline, you know, and it doesn't feel like a real clear sunny day. You know, it feels
Mhm.
a bit maybe overcast, a little bit misty out there. And
Right.
Yeah.
This one I did, as you suggested, I did not draw it ahead of time. I just started painting. So I did not draw it.
So if you didn't draw it at first, okay, I guess my question to you is, why did you go back and add all the extra line work?
I thought I defined it a little better.
Okay, and you know, in some areas, I think, you know, you could have gotten away with that. I think you kind of overdid it.
Okay.
You know, again, like, you know, did this really need an outline, since, you know, it's a surface that's catching all that light?
Yeah, that one I wouldn't add it because it just seemed to blend into the sky, and I didn't see I couldn't tell the edge of the lighthouse.
Yeah, and I probably would have been okay with that.
Okay.
Because I mean, in some cases, you know, when you're outdoors, you're seeing a building or something like that. You know, that sometimes happens. You know, you lose an edge to something. That's okay. You know, you certainly would have understood, because of the darker value here on the superstructure of the lighthouse.
Yeah.
You know, that it was attached. And again, like a lot of this, you know, I don't know that you needed, you know, to draw all that in, you know, because I mean, overall, the shape would have told you that it was a lighthouse, and as long as you had a change in value between where the window was, right, and then the actual structure on the outside, I think you probably could have gotten away with a lot less there. And then
Okay.
same thing is true in the house. It's like, you know, did you really need the hard line on the edge, or could you have just left it a change in value to tell you that, you know, that was the roof line right there?
So where else would the outline should not be? What about the back of the house and the rooftop? Would that?
Yeah.
not have-
Well, I think, you know, like like the edge under here, you know, probably needed a line. You know, the back edge, probably get away with that in the back edge of the house. Here at the front edge of the house, because you've got a definite change between the value on the side and the front. I think you could have just left that with a change in value and not had to put that harder line in there.
So if there's a change in value, you don't need the line. What about at the back where there is a darker, where the shadow, I guess, would be with their need with a asking you this for my future reference.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
the back of the house, you said it could use an outline. So are
Yeah,
you saying that the parts in shadow need outlines, the parts that are not in shadow don't?
no, I'm not saying that. Okay. I mean, he put a shadow there or a line there,
Mhm.
and right in this area right here, you know, they're close in value, and they're similar in color. So I mean, having a line there, okay, helped define that edge. Now he could have left it out and maybe darkened the value on the house a little bit overall, so that it stood out away from, you know, the ground area back there, and then he wouldn't have needed a line. So you just, that little change in value would have, you know, separated them out, you know, pretty well without it. Really about the only thing that he really needed the line for was really maybe like right up under the edge of the house here, you know, maybe around the chimney. You know, I'm kind of
The
iffy.
roof. What
Huh?
about the peak? What about the peak of the roof?
Again, you know, because the color is different and the value overall is different, you know, you don't really have to have that line there.
Okay.
See, a lot of times, you know, just that change in value would do it for you. Same thing is true here with the backside of the lighthouse. you know, as it went around, you know, putting that dark line in there sort of flattens it out. See, if this would have wrapped around and then that line not been there, you know, do you think you would not have seen, you know, where the lighthouse ended? Because the color here is so much warmer than what's out here. And if you squint your eye down, overall it's darker by probably at least two values. If you didn't think it was dark enough and it didn't separate enough, you know, just make the value a little bit darker.
It's funny because after I was quote unquote finished, that's why I went in and added all the lines.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I know. And that's why I was asking you, you know, about that. Now, okay, so let's jump forward here just for a moment, because when you go here, let me blow that out. And maybe it's because the values just overall are darker or something like that. But yeah, and I can see, yeah, you did put in an outline on this as well. But it doesn't jump out as much because the overall values, you know, are darker and closer to the, you know, the outline anyway. But you know, when you go back here and you look at this lighthouse, I guess you put an outline around it, but it's not as strong. And yet, you know, you see that shape back there, you know, perfectly clearly. And because of the change in value, you know it's a lighthouse. You know, the thing with watercolor is, you know, when you look at a lot of watercolor artists' work, you know, they generally will, if they do a drawing at all, then they'll do it very lightly and very loosely, kind of sketchy. You know, they're not real tight and real precise with a lot of lines and stuff like that. You know, because what they use is they use the color and the change in value, you know, to tell you where those edges are. And in your case, you know, in this particular case right here, you put an outline, but you've gone outside of that outline and left that darker edge out here, and that edge works just fine. You know, it holds the edge of the lighthouse. And you don't really need that line.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in a way, you know, when you kind of get back and squint your eye down, you know, it all kind of falls together into like a darker shadow shape. And so, you know, it works. It's fine. But this is a little bit looser, you know, and it's not as dependent on the drawing. And I think it's a much better piece.
Now, I was trying to get out of my confines.
Yeah. But, you know, when I look at this particular painting and I look at this painting, I like the second one a lot better.
Okay.
You know, now, that's not to say it's not that you didn't do a lot of the right things here. You did. You know, the way you managed your color and everything else, I think are great. But, you know, as far as using a pencil or a pen or something like that to define edges and things like that, probably the only place that you really, really needed it in anywhere is probably right up in here a little bit, you know, if at all.
Right. Yeah, I guess I went back and added all those extra, all the lines you said that are not necessary. I say it's sort of funny because those are the ones that I went and added afterwards.
Yeah, and it's you know, since we're picking on stuff anyway, you know, it's like the fence line back here. You know, it's so sharp and so precise that it pulls it way, way forward. And it, you know, if you would have just kind of let the value be there, it would be softer and it would sit back in the distance, and then, you know, all of this would come forward and that would sit backward. But they're kind of equal right now.
Right.
You kind of see that?
I see that now, yeah.
Okay. So, but yeah, you did a beautiful job in the clouds and the way you transitioned, you know, the horizon line into the water. you know, the surface of the ground, even, you know, the basic values and forms on the house and the lighthouse itself, you know, all work really, really well. So it's like,
And the birds,
huh?
the birds.
The birds, yeah. The birds, okay. But everything works there, you know, and you really don't need the drawing part. So,
Okay.
Is that a crashing wave in the back of the fence on the right?
Yes. Yes.
Nice.
yeah, so yes, it's kind of a patchy water out there, you know. It's not real calm and still. You can almost hear the waves rolling in.
Mhm.
All right, and then let's talk about your drawings. Okay, so let's start off with these guys, and again, you know, I'm just gonna kind of thumb through them real quick, show you all the drawings that we did. There you go. And so again, you know, the thing I guess I want each of you to pick up as we go through these is that you can begin to recognize kind of the individual's hand in each of these drawings and how they use, you know, how they use the tool, you know,
Mhm.
whatever they're drawing with, and then how they manage line work and value and things like that. Now in John's case, you know, this is kind of, you know, I find this kind of funny, but you know, John keeps on, you know, saying, you know, well, I really don't draw, right?
Right.
You know, that's John's, you know, kind of, what would you?
My banner.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, well, I don't draw, you know, but, you know, and now he's been showing up on Fridays and been drawing. That's great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about these. When, you know, when you're trying to find like the features on the face and you're trying to draw someone and get a likeness of them, John, the details, you know, of like the eyes, the nose, the mouth, things like that, they're really not all that important. The thing that's going to make it look like the person that you're drawing is not those details. It's getting the proportions and the relationships of, you know, size relationships and position of things in the correct relationship, you know, that will make it look like that person. So what does that really mean? It's like you're finding the underlying structure. Now, don't worry about the eyes. Don't worry about the eyes so much as worrying about the eye sockets,
Right.
the cheekbones, the orbit of the mouth, and you know, the outline of the jaw. You know, the proportion of the forehead, and what's the shape of the forehead. You know, is it fairly broad and flat, or is it very rounded? And then how abrupt is the change between the front plane of the face and the side plane of the face? See, those are all more important than drawing an eye. And you shouldn't draw an eye until you have all of those in place.
Mm-hmm.
See? Because once you have that structure and proportion down, it's already going to look like them. If you get, you know, if you get all of those right. See? And then it's like that last minute or two, you can kind of suggest that there's an eye and a pupil there, or an eyelid, or, you know, nostrils or things like that on the nose.
Actually, I basically did that. I put in the shading, and but I thought for the socket and the eyes were toward the end, the last thing I put in.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, except that, okay, when you put in the shading, like the whites of the eyes were not,
Right.
you know, because they were all falling into that shadow of the eye socket. See? So there really wouldn't be any like white, you know, in the,
Okay.
Okay. You know, and then, you know, we've talked a lot about hair today. And so rather than thinking about hair as individual strands, all of you, and this applies to everybody, you know, you need to start looking at hair as a shape or a form, you know, and think about the overall shape of it. You know, don't get caught up with trying to do all these little strands of hair. You know, really the only thing you need here is, you know, if there's a change in shape where, let's say that, you know, there's a kind of a mass of hair here and then there's a mass of hair down below it, it might, you know, the line in between them separating probably wouldn't be straight. So it would probably wrap around the head and it would probably tell you a little bit about the shape or the form of the skull that is laying on top of it. Same thing with the beard, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're going to have the overall shape of the beard. And occasionally, you know, it might change and there might be something kind of come up into it or from the top down. And again, it's going to follow that plane, that shape. Now, when I'm looking at this area right here, you know, of where the beard, you know, sort of the goatee is, you know, you've done that a little bit. See, these are not just straight up and down, you know, they do begin to follow the form. It's just, you could have pushed that a little bit more, made it a little bit rounder. See, as it came up into there. And then these, I think, are probably okay. But you don't have to have a lot of them. You know, it's just one or two just to say, okay, you know, there, you know, we know it's a beard. You know, we don't have to see every individual hair there.
I think that's sort of like my problem, even like I said with the lighthouse. I go back and put every hair in and outline everything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You overdo the drawing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That happens a lot. Okay. Not just to you. You know, we all do that.
Is this graphite or ink? It's
Graphite pencil.
Yeah. I'm kind of thinking it's graphite.
oh, it's really black.
Yeah. Okay. So again, you know, kind of the same thing. Now you can recognize, you know, who these people are. Now, my granddaughter, she's, you know, that's my granddaughter at like 70. So, you know, you've aged her a lot, you know, because just basically, you know, the way that you use the pencil. And so you lost that, you know, that feeling of just being a young child. And so again, you know, a lot less there would have gone a lot further to help you describe the fact that she's a 4.5 or 5-year-old girl. Okay.
I did recognize that there was more forehead than normal.
Yeah, overall the proportion in the face, you know, is good. Now I think it was Bob who kind of did the 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3 with her proportions. And yeah, so you're closer on the overall proportions, and you know, all of this kind of sits at about the half line. You know, really from like the top of her eyelid down is about half, and then, you know, it's about equal, you know, up to the top of the head. So, you know, that's kind of indicating that, you know, she's younger. But again, then you've done everything, you know, with the use of the line and the shadow and how kind of heavy you've laid it in, you know, aged her quite a bit.
Yes. That was my most difficult one.
Yeah, a lot of people, you know, I did that on purpose. You know, because children are hard, you know, there's no doubt about that. You know, they are hard to get and not make look, you know, quite a bit older. Okay. And, you know, we could kind of say the same thing, you know, about all of these drawings, you know, because you're pretty consistent. Now, you know, when you begin to lay in tone, all right, let's talk about that a little bit. And it's kind of the same thing we talked about with Bob. It's like with drawing the faces, you know, I realize that 10 minutes isn't a lot of time, but it still makes a difference, you know, if you'll slow down and kind of really think about how you lay that tone in. and get it to actually move in different directions to describe a form, you know, then you'll be a lot more successful at making that face look round and three-dimensional. You know, when you're using the kind of typical, you know, 45-degree angle, you know, I'm laying in a tone and I'm right-handed. Uh-oh. Yeah. It kind of, you know, it flattens out the shape. You know.
Well, this is like I told you on Friday, once I was drawing flat and I picked it up to look at it and I thought everything is elongated.
It is. Yeah. 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 You had mentioned that earlier. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And that, and again, you know, it's one of those things that you learn, you know, as you draw, it's like, well, okay, don't lay my paper flat on the desk, because as soon as I pick it up, yeah, everything's gonna, it looks fine to me where it's at, but as soon as I pick it up, then
Right.
everything gets longer because, yeah, it's just the angle you were drawing it at.
Correct.
So, you know, whether you have like a little piece of wood or a drawing board or something like that, you can put in your lap
Mhm.
and just
Right.
angle, you know, angle the board a little bit so that it's like it's running, you know, perpendicular to your eye.
Mhm.
Then, you know, you'll stop getting that distortion,
Right.
you know.
So on this is with the line work, you're saying that change direction.
Well, not,
Basically, is that the idea?
well, okay, let's talk about this. Line work, no. Tone.
Oh, the tone. Okay.
Yeah, this is what I, you know, and now I know, you know, because I can see how you did it. It's not a very soft tone, you know, it's a series of lines that make up a tone, right?
Right.
Yeah. So what I'm talking about is this kind of on the interior of the drawing here. Rather than having everything run at the same angle, see if this would have kind of come down and around the head, see, then it would have helped describe the form there, and our eyes would have seen that overall, the drawing of the head as being more three-dimensional.
Mm.
See, by just having everything running at this 45-degree angle downward, it doesn't do that. It flattens it out. See? No. So,
Yeah.
so, you know, again, having value can be helpful, but you have to lay the value down and describe the form, you know, that you're putting the value on. And it's got to run in the same direction that the form is moving, you know, at that point. So let's say, yeah, this is where, you know, having a drawing pad and having you guys watching me would help a little bit. I'm going to stop this just for a second. Okay. And I'm going to get out my trusty drawing pad. And I'm going to try to draw upside down and backwards. Okay. See? Can everybody see the drawing pad
Yep.
you got in front of me?
Half of it, a little bit of it, not the whole pad. Yeah, you have to hold it.
How about that?
Most of them.
About 3/4.
About three. Okay. Well, here, I'll just draw up here then. Okay. So let's say that I'm trying to draw somebody's forehead. And again, I can't see this. So let's say, you know, that's kind of the shape of the forehead and that the brow line.
Okay, can you raise it up a little bit?
Yeah, I'm trying to draw and, yeah. Okay, can you see this now?
Just the tip of the eye. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, I'm not drawing the lower part of the face, okay? So if I wanted to lay in a value or a tone, and I wanted to describe the form of that forehead, let's say that the light was coming, you know, from that direction. So there might be, you know, a bit of a shadow, comes down here, hits the eye socket, cheekbone, you know, and then down the side of the face, right? So if I'm going to lay a tone down in here, you know, do I want to go straight up and down? Do I want to go at a 45-degree angle? You know, or maybe,
Curve. There you go. Curve it back. Go around the head.
see, and I'm changing direction as I move, you know, down that plane, right? So these are not all running parallel to each other. You know, they're curved and they're moving around the form in the head, right? When it gets to the eye socket, see at the bridge of the nose right here. Okay. So I want to describe that form. So maybe see where it's a little darker on the inside, down the side plane of the nose, right? And then, you know, maybe we can see some of the bottom plane of the nose. Okay, is that beginning to make a little bit of sense?
Yep.
Okay, and that's a very different thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Very different. Very different.
than that.
Yes.
Okay, and so, you know, what I'm saying to all of you is, you know, and particularly with, and it really applies to everything, whether you're drawing a bottle, whether you're drawing fruit, whether you're drawing a house, think about the change in surfaces and planes. And if you're going to lay in a value or a tone, have it describe that form and the direction that that form is running in. Okay. So let's kind of continue on with this just for a little bit. So let's say that I wanted to draw an eye in that eye socket, right? Okay. So I might find that round shape. And there might be, again, you know, a little bit of shadow on the underside of the eye, the sphere of the eye. And then we might find the eyelid, the upper eyelid. Okay, and then the lower eyelid. And then, you know, maybe we'll actually place like the pupil of the eye. Okay.
Maybe I should just draw upside down.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how I did, but okay. Yeah, that's not horrible.
Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
that's not horrible for drawing upside down and backward.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's the only time we need to be heavy-handed so we could have seen the markings a little easier. It's very light on my computer. You know, it's so light, it's hard to see the
Okay. Can you see it now?
a lot better. Yeah, but it would being heavy-handed, I could have seen it better than that even. But yes, that is better.
Okay. Yeah. Well, being heavy-handed would kind of go all against what I'm trying to get you guys to do. I'm trying to get you not to be heavy-handed.
Yeah, I can see it okay.
All right. Anyway. All right. So sorry. I guess I got my point across. So anyway, that's kind of the thought. So, you know, as you're using value and stuff, you know, start thinking about the shape or the form that you're trying to describe, you know, as you're laying that value in there. And you know, it's easy to just go say it's darker here, darker here, darker here, and just kind of, you know, scribble it in. But the problem is it begins at some point to take away from what you're trying to say. And so, you know, you need to be a little more thoughtful about it, you know. So slow down, kind of like I said with Bernice, you know, it's not how much you get done. It's like try to be more accurate about describing what you're seeing. And even if you don't get the whole drawing done, if you have something that's really nicely drawn, and it looks like you had a good understanding of the form and the shape and how to use value and stuff like that, that's a lot more valuable to you in the long run, you know, than just getting the drawing done. Okay. Is Lady here?
You didn't finish my last one now, did you?
I didn't
Get
finish what?
My last drawing, did you get that?
Oh, are we talking about this one?
With the Indian and the
Native American guy
Profile.
and the, yeah,
the
okay.
profile?
Yeah, okay. So basically same kind of thing, you know. You know, can you recognize, you know, who these people were? Yeah, you can. And you can in all of these. But again, it's kind of a matter of learning how to use value, learning how to use line, you know, and just slowing down a little bit.
I'm not seeing the share. I just see you.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, yeah, okay. That, you know, that would make a big difference, wouldn't it? If I actually shared the screen. Wow. I'm wide awake. Okay, there we go. All right, can you see me now?
I see the drawing.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, sorry about that, guys. Okay, but yeah, again, you know, same thing, you know, a lot
Same
of,
thing, right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, is Lady here?
Lady.
Lady,
I
where?
didn't see her.
Yeah, I got a green screen. I don't know who that is. It doesn't tell me. Huh?
There was Saran.
Yeah. All right.
Saran.
All right. Well, we'll.
That's Surin, by the way.
Oh, Surin? Okay.
Yeah, green screen. I
Okay.
couldn't get my picture in there.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so we're going to go to Rebecca. All right. Because I know she's here. Okay. All right. Now, Rebecca has been reading somebody I've been talking about all day, Barbara Bradley. She's been reading her book, and she's been, you know, doing some of the exercises and looking at folds and how to draw folds, you know, from Barbara's book. And she's making some good notes. And, you know, again, you know, she's beginning to get the idea down. Like this little hand right here and the boot. Blow these up. You know, these are really nicely drawn, right? You know, you get a nice sense of the gesture of a hand, right? And the movement. Now, is all the line work and everything, you know, working as well as it could be? No. Okay. But, you know, she's getting the idea, you know, of it and the overall proportions and things. Now, Rebecca?
I'm here.
Okay, good. When using line, somewhere in Barbara's book, she talks about the use of line weight, right?
Yes.
Making some lines thicker, some lines thinner, some lines sharper, some lines softer, right?
Yes.
And it's all about how you lay that tool down there and you use it, right?
Yes.
Well, you know, basically, you know, you need to think about that a little bit more. Now, that's a really nice hand that you drew, but it could be better. Again, you know, the outline here is kind of a very dark, hard line. So what are you really trying to say there? Well, you know, the way I would read that is those fingers are probably sitting in a shadow or a tone, right? And then as I come to the top, we lose them. So there's probably more light up here. Well, okay. So let's think about that. If there's going to be light on the upper part of this finger here, then maybe shouldn't these lines be a little more delicate and light?
Yes.
Leaving these a little heavier, right? And, you know, and I can see where you've tried to do that a little bit. You just didn't take it far enough. You know, same thing here. See, you know, this could have been a lighter value outline, and then, you know, let that be darker on the bottom. That would have put all of that in shadow and all of this in light. So,
It was funny to hear John talk about going back to his his drawing of the house and redoing lines.
Mhm.
I think sometimes what I do to cement in my mind what it is the object of the art teacher's lesson to me was, okay, where are the curves? Where are the curves? And so I just went back over them. I could have left them and I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you do what we call overstate them.
Right.
Right. Yeah, and that's, you know, that is the bane of every artist who's ever existed for all time and in perpetuity. That's something that we all fight, you know, because sometimes, you know, it works, you know, and it's like knowing when it works and just letting it go. And for
I
whatever
think,
reason,
Charles, for me, sometimes it's just the fun of doing it again.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I need to pay attention to that. Thank you.
okay, yeah. So the same thing is kind of true with the boot. You know, the outlines are a little bit even and stuff. And again, it's like decide, you know, where the light, where the shadow is. So maybe the line, because the top of the boot here and where this compression fold is in shadow, you know, maybe you can beef up those lines, make them a little bit stronger. Let these be what they are. And if you beef these up, then these automatically get lighter, right? In
Right.
contrast. Yeah. So it's where you put the emphasis, right? Now, the same thing here with your, you know, you're trying to get the fold or the bend of the body, and you're trying to get these folds or indications of fold to feel like they go around the body, right? But they don't quite do that.
They're kind of messy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're kind of missing, but they're also kind of flat. See, they don't really follow the form.
Mm.
See, so it's like you could have pushed that maybe another 15, 20%, and you could have really described, okay, so that's kind of how the fabric folds under the breast line here and kind of creates a shadow. Same thing with around the waist, you know, rather than this coming straight in, what would have happened if it would have started down here and kind of come up and around?
Right.
So that would have said, okay, you know, that's really moving around the edge of that form, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of little stuff, but it's important stuff.
Right.
See,
Oh.
you know, same thing here. You know, now you did a little bit better at, you know, getting these to move, you know, around the shape. You're beginning to, you know, kind of curve those lines a little bit more. But again, you know, this outline, you kind of flattened it out. It's kind of even or equal. You tried to beef this up a little bit, and it helped a little bit. But yeah, you could either push, like really where these folds come in, you could have really pushed them a lot more, and that would make all of this look lighter, you know, than it actually is right now.
Thank you. That's a good observation. Thank you.
And then you've said, again, you know, you're working from her book, and you got the idea of the spine, right? And where you're placing the weight, you know, on this leg. You know, this leg is, you know, more passive. This is more active. You know, the curve here, right? Curve of the hip, curve of the, you know, the rib cage and stuff. So, you know, you're beginning to get all of that, the understanding that the shoulder isn't really straight across, that it's, you know, it's curved a little bit, you know, and then up into the neck. So, you know, you're beginning to pick all of that stuff up. You just need to draw more and practice, again, how to use line and to where it's appropriate to put a thicker, heavier line, where it's appropriate to have a line almost disappear. So, you know, like in this leg, if you would take an eraser and you would take this line back, you know, say 70%, so that it's just barely there.
Okay.
That leg right there in that area would almost turn form right there on its own.
Okay.
but because it's almost, in fact, it's darker than the value that's on the shadow side. See, it flattens it out.
Okay.
You get your baseball player, you know, same kind of things. You know, I mean, you're getting the idea of the movement, how these folds begin to describe the underlying form and motion, you know, of what he's doing. But again, you know, understanding how to use line can tell you more about form and where the light is coming from and where the shadows are. Okay.
Okay.
Now this is your sketch of your landscape.
Correct.
Now, is this on paper?
That's on a piece of construction paper. I was just practicing where things went on the actual painting.
Okay. All right. So this is just kind of like a practice preliminary drawing in line.
Correct.
And then this is actually on a canvas, right?
Correct.
Okay.
What a difference.
Okay. All right. Well, I was just kind of wondering because it's like, okay, this looks like it's on a canvas and that looks like it's on paper. All right. Now, you had mentioned, what's the name of this artist?
Alicia Kennedy. It's pictures that we've had in our basement for a long decades. And I was looking around the house, what is it that I could put on canvas? This is a picture that I've looked at all my adult life and love it. It was done of a countryside scene, maybe in Great Britain somewhere.
Okay. All right. So when you do things like this, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Okay. It's good that you show me the drawing. It's good that you're showing me, you know, where you're at on the canvas. But if you could send in like a photograph of what you're working from, the painting that you're trying to. Yeah.
I did send it in. I guess it just didn't come through, but I'll be glad to send it again.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I only got these two things.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, that would help. And that way, you know, obviously I could see kind of what you're trying to work toward. Now, I mean, I understand this is very, very early on. You're just laying in your basic shape. Yeah. So, and again, I haven't seen the original piece of art. So, you know, I'm just kind of shooting from the hip here. But one of the things I would do next is I would try to figure out which is in light and which is in shadow on this building.
Right.
You know, is this all in shadow and this is in
Yes.
light, or vice
Correct.
versa?
Yes.
And
And it's real interesting because they're all like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 colors at the most in the whole painting, and they're all lighter shades of green.
okay, all right. So yeah, I would lay something in there, you know, just to hold, you know, the shape and the value. Okay, and then all of a sudden it's like that house will kind of come together, and it's like, oh, okay, I don't really need to do much more to it. But yeah, if you could, you know, send me that, and we'll look at it later this week. And
Okay,
talk about
sounds great.
and we've already talked about your figure there. So we're down to Surin. Wow. Okay, we're getting there. How are we doing? Oh, it's 4:04. Wow. Thanks.
I have to go.
Yeah, thanks for hanging in here with me, guys. I know we're running long today. Surin sent these in. He's got 3 paintings of birds that he did, and they're really, really lovely. And these are acrylic, right?
Yes,
How big are these?
16 by 20.
Okay. Yeah, so they're kind of, you know, medium size, you know, small to medium size painting. Now, the thing I kind of want to mention here is, you know, basically, okay, he's got a nice composition going on. The background moves back, the birds come forward. So, you know, they're not competing with each other and you don't lose them. And, you know, the way that he's managing the color, the greens and things like that, and how kind of muted and soft they are in comparison to the intensity of the color in the bird, and even the warmth and the intensity in the branch and the tree trunk, that the bird is on, really helps separate this painting out and helps push and pull some of the space in there so that you get this sense of depth and distance. And it all works really pretty nice. And the other thing, Sharon, and just looking at this, you're beginning to get a little more paint down on the surface than you used to. The paint surface here is a little bit richer and not as flat. And that's beginning to work pretty well for you. So good job on that one.
Does it look a little bit messy?
I'm sorry, what?
Does it look a little messy?
Muddy. Yeah, you keep
Messy, messy.
Messy? No. I
Messy, dirty.
Well, I don't think it's muddy now. And that's what I'd said earlier. I like the fact that you kept the intensity down, on these leaves. We see them, they're leaves, we don't have any doubt about what they are. If they were brighter and more intense in color, then they would be competing with this bird. That's not what we want them to do. So no, I think the way that you got them is fine. I like the painting the way it's working right now. Seems to be, kind of what you really want to happen there. Now, when you go down to the next painting, see, you didn't do exactly the same thing. Here, the color is, generally a little more intense, right? Now, luckily, the bird is a totally different color family in all the different areas. So it stands out, again, because of the change in value. And you've also kicked up the intensity, in the colors that you've got on the bird itself. So that even though these are not like real muted, there's enough of a difference in value and enough of a difference in intensity. Plus, this tends to be thinner, kind of more washy looking paint, and where this is very, very solid. So again, you're keeping the contrast between the two, and it works. It works just fine. So, and then third, but not least, yeah, it's this. Okay. And again, keeping all of this softer, more intensity and contrast in the bird itself, and then in the foreground, because the bird is sitting on the branch and these leaves are actually closer to us than the bird, you're getting some intensity in there. I'm not losing these in the background, so that's separating out, very nicely. I can't really say that, there's anything that you could do differently, to probably make it better. Other than, well, I guess if I were going to do something like this, the only thing I would kind of, as far as something you might change a little bit. Wow. That's a bonanza. There we go. I guess if I were going to do anything to change this, I probably would have taken this bird and shifted him over so they kind of sit back here. Since he's more or less looking in this direction, I would have given myself a little more room on this side of the canvas, on this side. Okay.
Yeah. I have two questions for you.
Mhm.
Out of the three, which one is a more interesting painting, and which one is a better painting?
Can it be that one is both?
Uh-huh.
Okay. if I get what you're asking me, I think the one that works the best is probably this one.
This one, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's between the three paintings. I think that's the strongest painting.
Huh.
No, it's got a nice composition. You know, you've got things, you know, moving forward, things definitely sitting in the back. You know, it reads well. You know, so I think probably this one is the better composition. As far as technique, as far as, you know, how you laid the paint down and stuff, this is probably the better painting. You know, for, you know, just your brush work and the use of color and stuff like that, you know, that one works really, really well. This is actually a really nice painting. Again, you know, the only thing about it, I think that could maybe get a little bit better is if you'd given us a little more branch over here and a little more negative space, it would have helped the composition of it. Because he's kind of running right up and down the middle of the composition.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyhow.
Thank you so much for your critique.
Yeah. All right. And she was here, but she went off and took a phone call. Susan? Yep. Okay. Yeah. Ah, there she is. Okay. I saw her peek back in here. Anyway, we had Susan's drawings, and let's just kind of run through them real quick. Oh, she's back. Yay. I muted you, Susan. Let me unmute you.
Okay.
Yep, there, you're back. Okay.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I had a phone call I had to take, so.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
We heard that.
My bonanza, right?
Yep. Right.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of thumb through these real, you know, and again,
I didn't do too well with it. I didn't do too well on that one.
okay, well, we'll talk about that. Okay,
Yeah, okay.
we're just kind of looking at all of them. All right, and so, you know, so those are Susan's drawings. Okay, now again, you know, when you look at somebody's drawings, there's something really, really consistent about each and every one of you, you know, and each of you have a very different look to the way you use the media, you know, and how you know, use proportions and tone and line and things like that, which is good, you know, because it's individual. And, you know, you shouldn't be trying to draw like I do, you know, or like John does, or like anybody else. You know, let your drawing be who you are, you know, and just let it kind of come out. Now, that doesn't mean that you know, you can't work on getting some of the basic concepts and ideas down, like how to use line, how to use value, and about, you know, understanding structure and proportion, things like that. And all of that will improve your drawing. Okay. Now, when I'm looking at each of these drawings, you know, I mean, they look like the people that she was drawing. Are all the proportions correct? No. You know, in some cases, they seem a little bit distorted. Now, that may be for 50 different reasons, you know. When you drew these, Susan, were these laying flat in your lap, or did you have them angled up, or?
I had them angled up.
Okay. All right.
In front of the screen, sitting here and angled up. So.
Okay. All right. Good.
Probably on my knees and against a TV table.
Okay. All right. So when I'm looking at like this lady in particular, right? The proportions in her face seem to be a bit off. You know, because you seem to have her kind of long down here in the jawline. And
Yeah.
if this were a little bit shorter, then, you know, it would probably feel overall a little more proportional. Now, again, you know, and I've said this to a couple of people, you're trying, you know, what you're trying to do is you're trying to draw the features of the face. And what you're leaving out is the underlying structure, right? So again, just like I was telling John, the size of the forehead is more important than, you know, the shape of the eyes and things like that. How big the cheekbones are and where they sit in relationship to everything else, you know, the orbit of the mouth, you know, the length of the chin, you know, all of those things are far more important than the details of the face. Because if you get those proportions right, then it's already going to begin to look like that person. If you get those off, it's not. And it doesn't matter whether you draw that eye exactly the way you see it. If it's sitting, you know, in the wrong place, or if it's in the wrong proportion to the rest of the face, it's still not going to look like the person you're drawing. Okay.
Okay.
So the priority is try to understand the structure. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? You know, the things I mentioned, but also it's like, where does the face begin to turn and move in a different direction here? You've got the front plane of the face, which generally seems to be, I mean, she's not looking right at us. You know, we're kind of looking at her 3/4. So we're seeing two planes of the face. We're seeing the side plane of the face and we're seeing the front plane, right? And right about in here, where I'm running the cursor up and down, is kind of where the side plane of the face would begin. So all of this side plane from here over is going to be front, right? And so, again, you know, just understanding where those things are at, you know, help build this into a form. See? So, you know, if you found out where that was, and then maybe you put just a little bit of value on the side plane of the face, that would have told you that, okay, the front of the face is catching more light, the side plane is beginning to fall into some degree of shadow. And all of a sudden it would have looked a little more three-dimensional, right? As you have it now, the value here is the same as the value over here. It's still a flat page, right? So that would have helped, you know, just finding, you know, the differentiation between front and side plane. You know, as far as drawing eyes, you got to keep thinking about, you know, the eyes sit inside of a structure. It's called the eye socket, right? And so how do we tell somebody that this part of the face is sitting back and under this part of the face right here? And the only way that you can do it is maybe by just putting a little bit of value in there, right? Because it's going to fall into, you know, some degree of shadow, okay? Where maybe the forehead doesn't, okay? So finding those structures, you know, are kind of important before you start drawing features. Now, when I'm looking at your drawings, and I think I've asked you to do this before, did you ever look up Egon Schiele?
Look up what?
Egon Schiele?
I don't think you told me to do that, but I mean,
yeah, I'm pretty sure I did, because your drawing, you know, the line quality is very similar to his, you know.
oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I do. The last couple classes or something, you told me to do that. I haven't yet, but I will.
It's been a while ago. Yeah, but I think I had suggested that to you. You know, but look at him, look at Klimt, look at almost any of the Austrian and German Secessionist painters. Okay, because you know, kind of the look of your drawing, you know, seems to it kind of seems similar to that. Just something about the quality of it. Yeah. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, go back and look at that time period. I think you'll find, you know, that it's like, yeah, it does kind of look at like the way I kind of approach drawing. So that's you know, that would be kind of fun. And you can learn a lot, you know, from looking at their work. Another guy, can't remember his first name, but his last name is Hodler.
Hodler?
No, Hodler. Hodler. He was I think he was Swiss. Again, you know, painting about the same period of time as Scheele and Klimt. But go back and look at his work as well. You know,
Okay.
yeah, I think you can learn a lot from them. But you know, I want to pick on this drawing in particular because it's a drawing of me. I love this.
What I did to you.
No, seriously, I love this drawing. I really do. Okay. No, the proportions are not all right, and you know, and there's things that could be better about the drawing. But you captured something in the drawing that was really, you know, that was really, really nice. You know, the drawing itself has got a really nice quality to it, and you know, it's got a kind of a feel, an emotion, an attitude to it. And that's one of the things about your drawing that you're really, really good at, is whether or not you get the accuracy, you know, in proportions and things like that. You seem to capture a little bit of about the sense of who the person is, which is a really nice thing to have going for you. It's actually one of those things that many artists who have studied for many years still can't do, you know? So you don't want to lose that, okay? You want to hold on to that. And then, you know, improve your other drawing skills around that. But yeah, it's got a really nice quality to the drawing.
Thank you.
And the same thing with my granddaughter, you know, Audrey. And again, you know, this drawing, the drawing of me, and, you know, pretty much all your drawings really do remind me a lot of Scheele's work. And you really, there's something about just, yeah, I can't really put my finger on it, but you really need to go look at his work in particular.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's some nice qualities to these. And I don't want you to lose that, you know, but at the same time, I also want you to get better at seeing proportion and understanding form, you know, and how, you know, you don't tend to use a lot of value and tone in your drawings, and that's okay, because Scheele didn't either. But it's the way you use the line, you can suggest that there's a value or a tone with it, okay? And that's by using line weight. And I talked to Rebecca about that, about changing the line weight. If there's a shadow attached to it, it's a heavier line. If there's light attached to it, it's going to be a thinner, more delicate line. See?
Okay.
Okay. You know, and that's pretty much so true with all of these. See? But they're all, you know, really nice drawings, you know.
Thank you.
You know, and like I said, you've got something about each and every person that you drew. It feels a lot like them, you know. Even her, and she's actually kind of tough because she had like this really intense look to her face, you know, but at the same time there wasn't really, it's almost like drawing like a little baby or something. There's not a lot there to grasp, you know. There's not a lot of character in her face, you know. She's beautiful, but you know, there's not like a lot of form like in her cheekbones and stuff. You know, she's so smooth and kind of this very kind of consistent form to her that there's not much that you can put down about her, you know, to give her a lot of character. But yeah, it's a really nice drawing though. So
Thank you.
all right, so yeah, but yeah, that's the thing I want you to do is, you know, go off and find Scheele and Hodler and any of these Sessionist artists, you know, from Vienna, Austria, Switzerland, Germany, you know, in that late 1800s to early, like up to like about 1920, you know, it's kind of that time period.
Okay.
And then next week you can come back and give us all a report about Sheila and all of those guys.
Okay.
Tell us
Okay.
everything you learned about them. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So that's kind of about it for today. You know, it's, wow, we have gotten on to, what, about 4:20, almost 4:30. Yeah, 4:26. Real quick, the only thing left is mine. And so I'll kind of, you know,
That's cool.
yeah. I wasn't as organized as Eloise. I didn't block everybody off. And in fact, you know, I generally don't grid the paper off like that. I'll let one drawing kind of move into the other. You know, I particularly like that composition.
Right.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then this guy, like I said, he was like one of my favorite characters to draw. You know, he had so much to work with as far as you know, just a really interesting face to work with. And then, you know, there she is. So, didn't quite get her, you know, something not quite right about her. You know, hadn't figured out what that is, but you know, she's kind of there, but not. So anyway, that's everything I got. Anybody got anything we need to talk about before we all go away and come back and do it again tomorrow?
Not here.
No? Okay.
Thank you for your patience with us and your hard work.
Oh.
Right.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, that's why they pay me all this money. And they, hey,
Thank you so much.
and they let me stay home and do this, you know, which is, hey, I'm okay with that. You know,
Good.
I'm liking this part of life. So anyway, it was great seeing each and every one of you. You know, thanks for sending in the drawings and things that you did and that you worked on. And next Thursday, well, this Thursday coming up, you know, we have another opportunity to share things. So if you got projects and things to send in, you know, try to send them in over the next day or so. And, you know, we'll talk about them on Thursday. Tomorrow is painting and mixed media. And I've got a couple more artists I'm going to introduce you to. And no, it won't be Egon Sheila or any of the sessionists, okay? So, Susan, you got to go do your homework. All right?
I won't have it by tomorrow.
No, but no, seriously, I mean, you know, just Google them. And again, you know, now once you Google them, you're going to have to take a little while and really look at some of the artwork that they did and just kind of keep going back and looking into it and look at your drawings and look at what they did. And I think you'll begin to see some similarities there. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Other than that, I've got, like I said, I've got 3 artists that I'm going to talk about tomorrow. We're going to watch a video to start with, and then after that, I've got individual images of two different people's work that we're going to discuss and how, you know, how they're basically approaching this. Pardon me. This idea of painting. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow, and we'll do that tomorrow at 10. Okay. So not that long from now.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.